told that we're live. Okay, good. Hey, folks, welcome to the program. We're broadcasting live from the 92nd General Assembly, where we're actually at the Answer Studios, but we're having a really good time. 101.1 The Answer. So we got a lot to get to. We'll tell you about how the governor's tax cut proposal failed by 2 votes yesterday in the Arkansas Senate. That was certainly unexpected, and we'll do that. But we got State of the Union coverage. We got State of the Union coverage first. My goodness, what an incredible speech by President Donald Trump. Absolutely incredible. Just a few of the headlines here. Even CNN in their poll, 59% had a very positive view of the speech. And I believe CBS News, the last I heard, their CBS poll, 76% approved of the speech. 76% approved of the speech, according to a CBS poll. This was a very well-written speech. I can't stress that enough. Now, I'm no speech writer, but I do consider myself a student of communication, and this was a schooling, is what this was. I'll tell you specifically what I mean, also my favorite parts of the speech as well, when we begin the show here in a little bit. At the bottom of this hour, Mr. Tim Loggins with the Patriots Vac 746 will be back on. It's a big week, in my opinion, for the for your Second Amendment rights here in the state of Arkansas. Also, we've also got Dr. Patrick Wolf. We're going to talk some school choice. Dr. Patrick Wolf will be on the program at 7:33. Josh Waters will be with us in. Definitely want to see that through, and we will start the show here in just a little bit.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us, broadcasting from the Answer Studios in Little Rock, 101.1 The Answer. Really appreciate them hosting us, as always. We have a great show planned for you. We're going to be talking to Mr. Tim Loggins coming up at 6:33. Then we got Josh Waters in studio at 7, and then Dr. Patrick Wolf will be talking some school choice at 7:33. But you don't care about any of that right now, do you? All you care about is the State of the Union. I was just telling the online audience in the little pre-show, this was one of the best written speeches that I can remember. And let me tell you why. Number one, the closing was incredible. It reminded you of how great this country can be. The beginning of the speech did, as did the end. We're going to start there here in just a moment. I want you to notice what President Trump did last night. President Trump uses every opportunity to basically uses the reality, the news of the world to support his positions. It's incredible. So you have Venezuela that's collapsing, and they're collapsing because of socialism, because of centralized government. So he brings that up and then uses that to basically bring the hammer down on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, calling for socialism in this country, and that was brilliant. Also, he talks about abortion, and he brings up what happened in New York, what's happening in Virginia, and how absurd it is. But before he does that, he talks about how important it is for children and parents to bond, and so that's why in his budget he has paid leave for parents. Now, whether you agree with paid leave for parents or not, for new parents or not, I think you'll agree that's pretty masterful, because the Democrats applauded paid leave for parents, but sat on their hands when he condemned abortion. That doesn't look good to the nation, okay? And then on illegal immigration, right before he talks about building the wall and illegal immigration and the crisis that has been on the border for decades now, you know what he talks about? He talks about the prison reform bill. What was that called? The First Step Act. He talks about the First Step Act and how it was great that Congress was able to work together, that Congress was able to do something, and come together. And he immediately then says, we got to come together again for the good of the country on illegal immigration. I don't want to talk too long because I want you to hear what he said in case you missed it, but it was absolutely fantastic. My favorite part of the speech was the end, where he talked about the Republic. He talked about the Capitol. He did this on his last State of the Union when he mentioned how the Capitol is the people's house. The Capitol is a monument to the American people, not to anybody else. He went further and talked about the opportunity that this Congress has to do great things. It was an uplifting speech. It was one of unity, and it was also one of substance, again, on the issues that are important to the American people, like securing our borders, not killing kids after they're born, never becoming a socialist country. It was extremely powerful and uplifting. Let's get to cut number one, Joe. This, in my opinion, was an incredible closing moment of his speech. Cut one whenever you're ready, Joe.
Did they do it? They did it for America. They did it for us. Everything that has come since our triumph over communism, our giant leaps of science and discovery, our unrivaled progress towards equality and justice, all of it is possible thanks to the blood and tears and courage and vision of the Americans who came before. Think of this Capitol. Think of this very chamber where lawmakers before you voted to end slavery, to build the railroads and the highways and defeat fascism, to secure civil rights and to face down evil empires. Here tonight, we have legislators from across this magnificent republic. You have come from the rocky shores of Maine and the volcanic peaks of Hawaii, from the snowy woods of Wisconsin and the red deserts of Arizona, from the green farms of Kentucky and the golden beaches of California. Together, we represent the most extraordinary nation in all of history. What will we do with this moment? How will we be remembered? I ask the men and women of this Congress look at the opportunities before us. Our most thrilling achievements are still ahead. Our most exciting journeys still await. Our biggest victories are still to come. We have not yet begun to dream. We must choose whether we are defined by our differences or whether we dare to transcend them. We must choose whether we squander our great inheritance or whether we proudly declare that we are Americans. We do the incredible. We defy the impossible. We conquer the unknown. This is the time to reignite the American imagination. This is the time to search for the tallest summit and set our sights on the brightest star. This is the time to rekindle the bonds of love and loyalty and memory that link us together as citizens, as neighbors, as patriots. This is our future, our fate, and our choice to make. I am asking you to choose greatness. No matter the trials we face, no matter the challenges to come, we must go forward together. We must keep America first in our hearts. We must keep freedom alive in our souls. And we must always keep faith in America's destiny. That one nation, under God, must be the hope and the promise and the light and the glory among all the nations of the world. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
That's his speaker here. Now, we also have this. Hang on one second. Let me turn my camera on. So we also have cut number 2, which was also really good. I want to also remind you that this speech, according to CBS, 76% approved of it. Even on CNN, they've got a 59% thought that it was very positive. 59% according to a CNN poll. Let's go to cut number 2. Here's where it really gets, it's like an art form. Let's talk about the dangers of socialism and how people are calling for it in our country. But before we do, let's remind them that Venezuela is in really just shambles because of socialism. Cut 2, go.
2 weeks ago, the United States officially recognized the legitimate government of Venezuela and its new president, Juan Guaido. We stand with the Venezuelan people in their noble quest for freedom, and we condemn the brutality of the Maduro regime, whose socialist policies have turned that nation from being the wealthiest in South America into a state of abject poverty and despair. Here in the United States, we are alarmed by the new calls to adopt socialism in our country. America was founded on liberty and independence, and not government coercion, domination, and control. We are born free, and we will stay free. Tonight, we renew our resolve that America will never be a socialist country.
All right. Stop.
Yeah, you look at Bernie Sanders there and just the scowl that Bernie Sanders had when that happened. That was pretty funny. Now, when he said we'll never be a socialist country, even Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer stood up and applauded because they know that the American people, maybe not that district in New York that elected Ocasio-Cortez, but they know the American people do not want socialism. Now, that's pretty powerful. A lot of people saying this kicked off President Trump's 2020 reelection bid. That may be so, but I'll tell you one thing about President Trump. He loves America. And I'm not so sure. I don't think we've had somebody that actually loves America in a very, very long time in the White House. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying that other Democrats and stuff didn't love America or love the idea of it or the fruits of it, but they would say things like, well, we're citizens of the world. Well, that is, President Trump is clearly thinking of the nation state first before he thinks of people outside of the country. And isn't that the kind of government we want? Okay, next up, he geniusly brings up to care for kids, to bond with kids. Parents need paid leave, whether you agree with it or not. And he uses that, gets the Democrats to applaud. And then cut number 3 brings up the horrific instances of, people describing infanticide, what New York State did, what Virginia's thinking about doing. And this was a way, I think, to really illustrate this genocide that's been going on since 1973. Cut 3, go.
I am also proud to be the first president to include in my budget a plan for nationwide paid family leave so that every new parent has the chance to bond with their newborn child. There could be no greater contrast to the beautiful image of a mother holding her infant child than the chilling displays our nation saw in recent days. Lawmakers in New York cheered with delight upon the passage of legislation that would allow a baby to be ripped from the mother's womb moments from birth. These are living, feeling, beautiful babies who will never get the chance to share their love and their dreams with the world. And then we had the case of the governor of Virginia, where he stated he would execute a baby after birth. To defend the dignity of every person, I am asking Congress to pass legislation to prohibit the late-term abortion of children who can feel pain in the mother's womb.
And the Democrats quit.
Democrats sit on their hands, ladies and gentlemen. The Democrat Party sits on their hands. Not I don't think everybody, but it's amazing to me to see all those women that were dressed in white. They were more excited about the announcement of women in the workforce and the record number of women serving in Congress. And honestly, and I'm sorry, I don't care if this is, I'm not supposed to say this is a man, but I just thought, well, that's when the women stood up, the women in white, and they were like high-fiving and like, I don't know what they were doing. It was like it was a sorority convention. And I just thought, oh, gosh, this is just silly. This is just silly. And it's all because the left and the Democrats are obsessed with putting people in groups and pitting each other against one another. And, I mean, we're just absolutely obsessed. I just thought to myself, this is absolutely silly. But if you contrast the fact that they all cheer for, yeah, mandatory leave for mother and baby or daddy, and so they can bond with it. But we want partial birth abortion. What hypocrites! What you guys? Your morals are so far from what mine are. I think from what the average Americans are. Just absolutely weird. I mean, weird. And then, I don't know. I mean, the headline on Drudge right now is, Trump wins over Democratic women with those, and that's true. That was a lighthearted moment. It really was. But it was also a silly moment, in my opinion. It was just a silly, silly moment. And maybe the American people thought it was silly too. I wonder how many women out there kind of buried their head in their hands when they saw the women just acting very conspicuous. Let's just put it like that. All right, cut number 4. Illegal. I know we have to go, Joe, but we're going to keep going here. And that means even if we have to trim down, we only have to take a minute break. So if we have to trim something down, that's fine. Illegal immigration. Now, right before he talked about illegal immigration, again, he talked about prison reform. Go ahead, cut number 4, Joe.
Democrats must join forces again to confront an urgent national crisis. Congress has 10 days left to pass a bill that will fund our government, protect our homeland, and secure our very dangerous southern border. Now is the time for Congress to show the world that America is committed to ending illegal immigration and putting the ruthless coyotes, cartels, drug dealers, and human traffickers out of business.
The Democrat on the hill
Did not clap for this is incredible to me. Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead. I'm just saying the Democrat Party sat on their hands for taking, for putting out of business, cartels, sex traffickers. Did anyone else think that was weird that she remains, sitting? I'm sorry, Joe. Keep going. I may interject comments here, but just keep going with the clip.
As we speak, large, organized caravans are on the march to the United States. We have just heard that Mexican cities, in order to remove the illegal immigrants from their communities, are getting trucks and buses to bring them up to our country in areas where there is little border protection. I have ordered another 3,750 troops to our southern border to prepare for this tremendous onslaught. This is a moral issue. The lawless state of our southern border is a threat to the safety, security, and financial well-being of all America. We have a moral duty to create an immigration system that protects the lives and jobs of our citizens. This includes our obligation to the millions of immigrants living here today who followed the rules and respected our laws. Legal immigrants enrich our nation and strengthen our society in countless ways. I want people to come into our country in the largest numbers ever, but they have to come in legally. Tonight I am asking you to defend our very dangerous southern border out of love and devotion to our fellow citizens and to our country. No issue better illustrates the divide between America's working class and America's political class than illegal immigration. Wealthy politicians and donors push for open borders while living their lives behind walls and gates and guards. Meanwhile, working-class Americans are left to pay the price for mass illegal immigration. Reduced jobs, lower wages, overburdened schools, hospitals that are so crowded you can't get in, increased crime, and a depleted social safety net. Tolerance.
All right, take a break. Will build the wall. He will get it done. We're going to take a break. Back in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Let's get to it. This is week number 3, and we have the scorecard of bills we're watching from week number 3. Welcome back to the program. We have Mr. Josh Waters with us. Josh, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well, Paul. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Let's get right into it, shall we? What can you tell us about the first bill that is a support bill on the scorecard, SB 170 by Senator Bart Hester, Republican from Cave Springs?
Yeah, so this bill is pretty straightforward. It would tell cities and counties, hey, you can't tell private property owners how they want to design their houses. You can't tell them what the exterior has to look like or be built with. You can't say how many rooms and what types of rooms, the square footage of a house.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Now, we covered the Trump State of the Union as best we could. We had 4 clips for you, and it really sums things up. There was much more, I think, that you could get into. There was a lot of bipartisan issues that the Democrats could support. And again, this speech is being, viewed 70% of the, according to the CBS poll, think that it was positive. 59% thought it was very positive. Some pretty incredible stuff when you think about it. Will Congress come together? I don't think so. I think President Trump's going to use the military to build the wall. That's what I think. We're going to be right back with Mr. Tim Loggins, going to talk a little bit about what we can expect throughout the rest of the week when it comes to your God-given right to defend yourself and your family and your property with guns if necessary. Back in a moment.
What the layout looks like. So really protects the freedom that private property owners in designing and building their houses.
Wow, and that does sound. So I think a lot of people might be kind of shocked to know that that's something that the government is regulating right now.
Yeah, it's unfortunately an increasing number of cities and counties are looking at this. Some I know have looked at the International Property Code. And it's usually always done in a way they want to, clean up and remove blight. That's kind of how it's sold as. But at the end of the day, if someone has private property, and especially for, let's say a home builder, they decided they bought up a plot of land, they're going to put in a subdivision, they've, planned it all out, and then a government comes in and says, no, we want your subdivision to look like this. That's not freedom. And so this bill would say, hey, cities and counties can't do this type of thing.
Yeah, let's think about this for a second. The more cities and counties that attempt to pass these types of ordinances, not only does that restrict a person's choices, but it's also going to increase the cost for home builders.
I mean, at least that's the way I would imagine that's what it would do.
Yeah, I mean, it, and that's an argument, that I think actually Senator Flowers, a Democrat, was like, hey, this could decrease the ability for affordable housing, especially in lower income areas, drive up the prices and drive people out of the market, maybe.
So you say this had bipartisan support then?
Yeah, it's gone through the Senate side, and it had bipartisan support, and so I think it's probably on its way. I did read, there's going to be maybe some amendments to it, so we'll keep track of those. But based on what's out there right now in the legislation, it's a bill that would increase economic freedom for people and home builders. So this is a good bill, I think.
Housing design freedom. It's by Senator Bart Hester. It's SB 170. So feel free to call your legislator folks and tell them to support SB 170 because it seems like it's less government, not more, and that's certainly something that the citizens would benefit from. All right, let's move on now. Another bill of support. This is another good one, surprising but good. SB 211. It is the income tax bill by Senator Jonathan Dismang, a Republican from BB. Tell us about SB 211, Josh.
Yeah, we talked about this last week, Paul, and it's a straight income tax bill. There is a draft bill of the governor's tax plan that came out after the tax task force, and that
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Interestingly enough, I was just listening to our Paul from the Past video, our interview yesterday, where we were going over the governor's tax cut plan. That is something that's good. It's a straightforward tax cut for your income taxes. It failed the Senate yesterday and needed 27 votes, only got 25. We'll tell you what happened. My gut tells me there's more negotiation going on. I do expect it to pass. Most people expect it to pass, but there's clearly other things going on that we don't know about. At least that's my speculation. Hey, folks, I want you to welcome back the Patriots Back 746 as Mr. Tim Loggins is with us. Tim, how are you this morning, sir?
I am doing great, Paul. Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. I want to remind everybody the Patriots Back 746. I think everyone's really familiar, but if you haven't checked them out yet, folks, you need to go to facebook.com and you need to type in Patriots Back 746 and then check out the group, ask to become a member, and just get ready to be enlightened about, your God-given natural rights as well as what your Second Amendment rights are here in the state of Arkansas, which is that we're a constitutional carry state, permitless. You don't need a license or permission slip from the government to carry open or conceal. And let's just kind of get right into it, Tim. Let's start with Aaron Pilkington's bill. It was delayed yesterday. It was supposed to be heard, was delayed. You think that'll be heard in the House committee tomorrow sometime?
I would give the probability about 30% of it being heard tomorrow. It's more likely to be heard next week. Disappointed that it was delayed. Disappointed that folks are pushing for some amendments to it because it's a good bill. For the listeners that aren't familiar with 1059 by Aaron Pilkington, it says you have a God-given right to defend yourself or any person, any place that you're lawfully entitled to be. Right now the law has two different standards. One if it's your home and another if you're not at your home. And the standard should be is if you use deadly force, was it reasonable? Was your life in jeopardy? Was another person's life in jeopardy? Were you stopping a violent felony? That should be the standard, and you shouldn't have some subjective review after the fact, I guess is the way I would put it. You shouldn't be subject to a hostile prosecutor. And let's face it, Paul, it shouldn't matter if I'm a law enforcement officer or a preacher. It shouldn't matter if I'm a father or a grandma. I got a right given by God to defend my life, no matter where I'm at. And that's what this bill is trying to do. It's trying to say, look, guys, we need one standard citizens can understand. All this talk about it being a stand your ground law, it's not a stand your ground law. It's a clarification in the law, and it's recognizing our God-given right to defend our life and our liberty. And anyone that disagrees with that, let's have that debate, because this doesn't legalize murder. The standard for murder remains the same. What it does is it says you have a right to defend your life or another's life.
Tim, are people saying that this is going to legalize murder? Are you addressing the other side's arguments right now?
Paul, I don't know if you're aware of it, but the Sheriff's Association met behind closed doors down in Little Rock, and they expressed opposition to it. Chiefs of police have expressed opposition to it. I know the Attorney General has come in and trying to mediate that balance between the two sides. And I can't tell you how important it is for folks to understand what the law is and what their rights are, when they can use force and when they can't. There should be nothing subjective about that. People should know. And to answer your question, yeah, there's some folks that's indicated that murder is going to go up if this law changes.
That's so ridiculous.
I challenge them to show me facts on that. That's just not true. It's not true in the 30 other states that this law exists in.
So we're talking with Tim Loggins on the Stand Your Ground law. State Representative Aaron Pilkington. I saw him in the hall the other day. I told him I really appreciate the work he's doing on this. He's getting pushed back, obviously. The law enforcement officers are pushing back. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading some Facebook posts this morning, and it seems to me that the sheriffs might have indicated that they were agreeable to the bill if it was amended, but now I'm not even sure if that's true, right? I mean, is it true that even if are they even willing to negotiate at this point, or what's the status right now? Will they support it if it's amended?
Paul, I'm not sure what the sheriffs will support or not. Like I said, they met behind closed doors. We weren't privy to that meeting. They expressed concern that it would make it easier for someone to claim self-defense that was in fact committing murder. And my answer to that would be murder is murder. This doesn't change the standard for when you can use force. It clarifies it. So if someone goes out and commits murder, it's still murder. And so what they're going to support or not, I don't know, Paul, but, I would encourage folks, call your sheriff. And Sheriff's Association has had a history in the past of being hesitant to supporting our rights. I know at one point, in the past, they were hesitant to even post the Second Amendment on their website.
Really?
Took a lot of pressure from citizens to even get that posted. So, call your sheriffs, call your representatives, look and see if your legislators on the Judiciary Committee in the House that's going to be hearing this, and call them and say, hey, guys, we deserve this.
Do you think that when civilians have guns, it makes law enforcement nervous?
No, I don't, Paul. I'm going to tell you, rank and file officers appreciate law-abiding citizens being armed. Now, what we've seen is a tendency by the higher up in the hierarchy you go, the more you tend to become more liberal. And I don't understand how that's related, but it just seems to be that way. The higher up the administration you go, the more you tend to not want your average citizen to be armed and be able to defend themselves. That's a shame. I mean, rank and file officers, they believe in citizens' ability to defend their rights. But, we got to get those leaders on board with that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We're talking with Tim Loggins. Okay. So you give it a 30% chance that Pilkington's bill will be heard tomorrow. Let's talk about the resolution to clarify that Arkansas is, in fact, a constitutional carry state. This would do a lot for the citizens. If it doesn't pass, doesn't change anything, because the judge in dicta has already said in Arkansas versus Taft or Taft versus Arkansas that there's no crime in carrying a gun open. That's not an excuse or probable cause for the officers to do anything to you. Do you think that bill is still going to run? That's State Representative Brant Smith's resolution.
Well, a couple of things, Paul. First of all, the Taft decision, Taft was actually carrying concealed.
Oh, he was carrying concealed. Open carry. I got you.
And so when we say that this affirms what we've been saying for 5 years, this absolutely affirms that you don't need a permit to carry, because he was carrying concealed.
That's even bigger.
So,
yeah.
But, you know, Paul, I believe it's going to be run tomorrow. I plan on going down there and speaking on behalf of this resolution. I appreciate Representative Brant Smith having the courage to run this resolution. And this is an opportunity for legislators to stand up, be counted, and say, hey, guys, we affirm your God-given right. And it's a chance for them to affirm the fact that they've resisted the temptation to continue this manufactured confusion. And you know what? It's time to stand up and be counted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the manufactured confusion is that you have to have a permission slip and, you know, a nod from the government in order to carry a weapon concealed. And, of course, Act 746 of 2013 decriminalized that, and we still don't have enough people who are – we've got legislators that'll acknowledge it. You have prosecutors that'll acknowledge it. You have a judge that'll acknowledge it, write it in his case. But we still haven't heard anything official from, let's say, the Attorney General or the legislature in general. I mean, if the legislature were to pass this resolution, it would go a long way in providing clarity. I mean, I believe it's already clear. There's just a resistance. You tell me if you disagree, Tim. There's a resistance with people to tell the citizens what the law is.
Paul, there's a resistance by some. Here's the thing. We got, a handful of arrests and citations that's occurred around the state that were eventually dropped. We've got a couple that were dropped under pressure. And what this resolution will do will not only will it send an indication of legislative intent, which some have been claiming is confusing, but it's not. It'll also send a message to these law enforcement agencies around the state that still refuse to acknowledge it. Hey, guys, there's going to be, civil liability if you continue in this line of thinking and not acknowledging what the law is. And I think we're at that point right now, but you know what? This will go a long way to stopping that.
Absolutely. Again, we're talking with Tim Loggins, the Patriots of Act 746. Tim, I'm excited to hear you speak for the resolution tomorrow in committee. I think that's going to be very powerful because, you being a former law enforcement officer, you certainly are credible and you're very good at hashing out arguments. I know, didn't you testify once before in front of the Arkansas Legislative Council, sir?
I've testified a couple of times, Paul. Back in October, I had the opportunity to address a joint judiciary committee right after the TAP decision. And I thank the legislators for resisting the temptation to, change the law and standing firm. And during that hearing, I stated clearly that TAP affirms that where constitutional carry state, no permit is needed to carry open or concealed. And every legislature in that hearing had the opportunity to disagree or agree, and every one of them agreed or remained silent. So this isn't controversial. What this is going to do is allow them the chance to stand up and be counted on their votes on what they're saying privately. We're not asking to change the law. We're not asking to change the standard. We're just saying, hey, guys, recognize what you voted for in 2013.
Oh, man. It's going to be such an interesting. Now, this is in House Judiciary tomorrow, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So what else are you thinking? I mean, we got a little bit of time here. So are you looking at anything else coming down the pike right now, in terms of, legislation? Well, let me just ask you about this. We haven't talked about Senator Trent Gardner's bill. I'd like to get your thoughts on this. This is a bill that he has put out there. He filed it last week that would allow a woman who has been a victim of domestic violence to apply for a concealed carry permit and have an immediate or fast-tracked temporary permit so that she can carry a gun and, feel safe and, potentially save her life if, the domestic abuser comes back. Now, we talked earlier about manufactured confusion. What are your thoughts on Senator Gardner's bill?
I don't think this is serious legislation. I'm not sure his intent. Maybe his intentions are good, but this adds to the manufactured confusion, and it solves nothing. This gives the impression that you have to have a permit when, in fact, Senator Garner has acknowledged he was present down there at that hearing where I announced the Taft decision. And he agreed verbally on the record that no permit is required. He knows this. Now, he's come on Facebook and said this would allow women to travel to other states, but that's incorrect. Other states aren't going to recognize it for reciprocity if it's a temporary permit. So I don't think this is serious legislation, and I would encourage Senator Garner to pull this legislation because it's continuing that confusion for the taxpayers, and it accomplishes nothing. If I'm a battered woman, I don't need to think I got to wait a couple of days to, attend a class or apply for a permit. If my life's in danger, I can carry a weapon now, and it's legal. And that's the message we need to be sending to the taxpayer. And you know what? I find that bill a little insulting because Senator Garner knows the law. He acknowledged it down there in the judiciary. He knows that. And to say otherwise is disingenuous, and I don't believe that of him at this point. I'm not sure why he's filed it, but I'm encouraging him to just pull this bill.
Yeah. What you just said, if it's really about battered women, the thing to do would not be to even waste time on a bill like that, assuming, what you said is true, that a temporary license would not be reciprocated, and to just immediately, say, hey, are there any battered women out there? Just so you know, you can carry a gun right now. You don't have to check in with the government. It's your right, and it's your life. I mean, that if the law already allows you to do so, we should be, and we're really concerned about battered women, we should be shouting it from the rooftop. The state should be, dare I say it, taking out ads, educating people on what their gun rights are. You know what I mean? If it's really about, allowing battered women to protect themselves.
We got to start having the right conversation in Arkansas, Paul. For too long, we've had the long one. Let's start from the premise that you're a good guy until you prove that you're not. And you have a God-given right to carry a weapon openly or concealed, or however you choose, wherever you're legally able to be. And on top of that, you have a God-given right to defend your life or someone else's, wherever you're legally to be. This is all tied together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's time for our Republican conservative legislators to recognize these God-given inalienable rights, clarify it to the citizens, because we have these rights. And oh, by the way, we deserve clarity in the law. And I want to thank those legislators that are trying to clarify, that are battling for our rights, that are standing up and being recognized and counted. And Paul, I just want to say, have you noticed the difference between this session and last session? I'm seeing a difference.
I definitely noticed a difference. How so? What kind of difference are you talking about?
I'm seeing a legislature being led by legislators. I'm seeing legislators lead. And I don't always agree with where they're leading, but isn't it refreshing that they're standing up and leading and trying to pass good bills for Arkansas?
So far, I agree with you. I agree with you, Tim. I'm seeing that as well. And I hope it continues. So, Tim Loggins with the Patriots Vets X746, sir, thank you so much for spending time with us this morning. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate this opportunity.
All righty. We'll talk to you soon. I'll see you tomorrow. Folks, all righty. Folks, that was Tim Loggins. We always appreciate him being on the program. He is right. Legislators are doing more leading from what I can tell so far, but we're still gonna we're gonna support the good ones. We're gonna say that talk about good legislation when it's good, talk about bad legislation when we think it's bad. That's kind of what we're gonna do here. I do want to remind you guys, if you haven't gone to Facebook and you haven't typed in Patriots Effect 746 and you haven't searched for them and asked to become a member, you need to do so today. They are on a mission to educate Arkansans about their gun rights and your natural right to self-defense. Folks, we got to take a break. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. Good morning. Back in a minute.
Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Included some conformity legislation that would increase taxes, include the internet sales tax. That has been dropped. This is a standalone bill that, when fully implemented, would save taxpayers $97 million per year. It would drop the top rate here in Arkansas from 6.9%, which is by far the highest in the region, down to 5.9% over or through fiscal year 2022.
You know, I saw some liberal groups out there claiming, being like, it'll cost more than $97 million. And what do you say to that, Josh?
Yeah, well, great. That means that means job creators and hardworking families will get to keep even more of their money.
Yeah.
That estimate's out there. That I think it's $157 million is what I saw. A competing group or whatever say.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Yes, welcome back. You know, some people on Twitter are saying, did anyone see Nancy Pelosi? I mean, she was like Spectre sucking on lemons last night. Did anyone see Nancy Pelosi shuffling through her papers? She kept standing. There's some people on Twitter are suggesting that the president sent over his speech beforehand so that the Democrats would know, what he was going to say. And then the speech that the president actually gave was not the speech that he originally delivered. Some people are saying they didn't expect the World War II vets. They didn't expect Buzz Aldrin or any of that. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just saying that's what some people are saying. And then, of course, you have the Democrat Party. Let me see. Where's this one at? The Democrats cheered. The Democrats cheered harder for themselves. The women in white, they were dressed in white for suffrage. Is that correct? Or they're suffering or something? Democrats cheered harder for themselves getting into Congress than for the war heroes, the criminal justice reform, the child cancer survivor, preventing sex trafficking, low unemployment, job growth, and a guy who landed on the moon. They cheered harder for themselves getting into Congress than those things. And look, I don't think that's not an exaggeration. If you were watching the same speech that I was watching, I just thought the whole thing was silly. Here's President Trump. I want to replay this. Again, he did a great job. A couple of things. I mean, not only, I love the stuff about war. I love the stuff about bringing the troops home. That's just me. The liberals used to love that as well. The press used to love that as well. The fact that the speech is getting a 70% approval rating, I would look for some sort of Russia collusion story to break, because the mainstream media is they're not going to spend too much time on this. They're going to go for fake news. But His closing was very uplifting and inspirational. He talked about Venezuela's failure before socialism and condemning socialism, and Ocasio-Cortez, not specifically. We'll talk. I want cut 2 here in just a minute, Joe. But he talked about paid leave and the importance of kids and their parents and the bond right before he talks about abortion, which is good. You see how this all sandwiches together. And then before he talks about illegal immigration and building the wall, he talks about coming together on prison reform and working together and doing something good for the American people. And then he says, we got to do the same thing for illegal immigration. It was a very well-written speech, not to mention the guests were absolutely superb. Go back to cut 2, Joe. Here's Venezuela and his condemnation of socialism, President Trump from last night.
2 weeks ago, the United States officially recognized the legitimate government of Venezuela and its new president, Juan Guaido. We stand with the Venezuelan people in their noble quest for freedom, and we condemn the brutality of the Maduro regime, whose socialist policies have turned that nation from being the wealthiest in South America into a state of abject poverty and despair. Here in the United States, we are alarmed by the new calls to adopt socialism in our country. America was founded on liberty and independence, and not government coercion, domination, and control. We are born free, and we will stay free. Tonight, we renew our resolve that America will never be a socialist country.
Come on, Nancy. Nick, Dan. Good. Keep clapping.
Be right back, Josh. Josh, talk about the governor's tax cut plan failing yesterday by 2 votes in the state Senate. So stay tuned for that, as well as Dr. Patrick Wolf. We're going to talk some school choice. Once again, the Lieutenant Governor, Tim Griffin, did an excellent job, and there's an op-ed in the Democrat Gazette on Sunday on the importance of school choice. Who knows? Hopefully we'll see some movement on that this legislative session. So anyway, don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment. Thank you for listening, Arkansas.
Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
And the reason I say that is because they're looking at the growth of the people who are going to be seeing this tax cut. They would anticipate growth from your 2016 numbers, which is what DFNA was looking at. So
yeah.
So we'll see, what the number ultimately is. But what we know, Paul, is that standalone bill is a tax cut. It would reduce revenue going to government and allow job creators and hardworking Arkansans to keep more of their money.
Yeah. Well, and we talk about the terminology. Liberal groups are talking about it'll cost the state. It'll cost the state. It'll save taxpayers. I mean, that's what we're talking about. $97 million tax cut means $97 million back into the pockets of Arkansans. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, if we want more economic freedom, we want these job creators to reinvest their money or spend it to grow the economy even more, they have to have it. And so this is a long overdue plan. It's been talked about a lot, how we had to be more competitive. Paul, we talked about before, unfortunately, Arkansas, 46 out of 50 when it comes to business tax climate. Hopefully this number is going to help that a little bit, and it's one step in the right direction.
All right, next up, a bill that is supported, according to this Conduit scorecard, HB 1342, a sales tax cut on used vehicles by State Representative John Payton, a Republican from Wilburn. Tell us about this.
Yeah. So a lot of people may not know that there's actually a form of double taxation right now on the purchase of any used vehicle that costs more than $4,000. Right now there's an exemption. If it's less than $4,000, there's no sales tax applied. And this would just increase that to anything below $7,500. Any used car sold for below $7,500 wouldn't have sales tax applied. When you think about it, Paul, these same cars that are being resold, when they were first sold new, they had sales tax paid on them. So any savings, it's going to be savings from double taxation. There's also going to be savings for the people of Arkansas who, might be looking for a used vehicle, and you can get a pretty good used vehicle for $7,500.
Yeah. Wow, that would be fantastic. I mean, that would be a huge burden off of the people who are in that used car market. There's a lot of people that don't even understand why. I'm one of them. Why there's even sales tax applied to used vehicles, because the sales tax has already been paid when they were bought brand new.
Yeah, it's kind of that theme of they'll keep taxing it at every level if they can.
Well,
it's
if it moves, tax it, and cars move. So we're gonna.
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna tax it. Well, that sounds like a win right there. And where is that in the process? Do we know yet? Has it been heard in any committees yet?
It has not. It was just filed the end of last week.
Okay.
So it'll be added to the agenda. It's already been added to the agenda for Revenue and Tax Committee, but hasn't been heard yet.
Okay. All right. Moving on, another bill that's a good one, HB 1343, the Transparency in County Government Spending by State Representative Spencer Hawks, a Republican from Conway. What can you tell us about HB 1343, Josh?
Pretty straightforward bill. It would say county clerks have to publish online on a website the annual financial report for the county. And so there's some research done actually by the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics, ACRE, and they looked at how counties stacked up in this transparency index. And unfortunately, Arkansas overall was pretty poor on this report. There are some counties that were very transparent, posting information on what the county government's doing. So this bill would just say, hey, county governments, you have to at least publish the annual financial report. And this is an increase in transparency and allows people to know what their county government is doing with their money in a more accessible way than just a newspaper that's published in the county. That's the current standard.
Wow. Yeah, so, bills, folks, a lot of this is, anytime we're looking at more transparency and able to, hold the government accountable for how, they spend our money, we need to have that window of transparency in all levels of government, and that's why this is such a good bill. And, in order to keep, if it...
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for being with us. Broadcasting live from 101.1 The Answer Studios. We just got through some incredible Donald Trump clips in the first hour in the coverage of the 92nd in the State of the Union. Now we're moving on to the 92nd General Assembly. We've got a great show for you. Mr. Josh Waters is in the studio with us. Josh, how are you, sir?
Good morning, Paul.
Always great to have you on. See, what else do we got? Dr. Patrick Wolf coming on 7:33. We're going to talk some school choice with him. It's always great to have him on. Now, Josh, let me get your reaction yesterday. The big news out of Arkansas yesterday is that the governor's tax cut proposal, simple tax cut, made the Conduit scorecard. Its support needs to happen because it's a straightforward income tax bill, but it failed out of the Senate. It needed 27 votes, only got 25. Senator Bill Sample, Senator Terry Rice were there, but didn't vote either way on it. Mm-hmm. People were pretty surprised, I think, in the gallery. We were sitting together in the gallery. What was your reaction?
Yeah, I think people were surprised, and I think some people forgot that this is going to require a 3/4 vote. That means 27 out of 35. That's a really strong vote needed anyway. So I think some people were surprised. Senator Sample, Senator Rice were the only two Republicans who did not vote for it. And I read some more coverage of it, and
okay, so where have you heard that? Senator Sample wants
Talk
highway
Business and Politics. I know had a quote from him.
Okay, so they're saying that he's a holdout because he wants now what kind of highway funding plan? Is it one? I'm speculating. Maybe some of them don't want to refer the tax increases to the voters. They just want to, take a straight up or down vote in the chamber. Is that it? I mean, or is it something else? Have you heard anything?
Yeah, I'll just read the quote here. This was separately in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. I told the governor, it's the Senator Sample, yesterday that I couldn't support it until we have a highway bill. And I told Hendren that, and I told Dismang that. He goes on to say, we think that we have got something. I'll decline to provide details of his highway plan. I'm gathering our troops up, and we're going to pitch it to the governor. If he thinks it'll work, he's willing to do it, we'll do it. Then at that time, if he will say that he can support it, I will support his tax cuts. So it's a straight up holdout, it sounds like, until a highway funding plan comes forward.
That's strange to me. I guess I'll have to wait and see what they're holding out for. I mean, what kind of is it a highway plan without tax increases? Is it a highway? You know what I'm saying? Is it a highway plan with tax increases? I mean, that's fascinating. Well, they say that it's making sausage. Yeah. And this is what we're seeing right now.
Yeah. It's a legislative process working out. Deals are going to be made.
Now, that doesn't mean that we can't have fun with some of these liberal arguments. Yeah. Because quite honestly, folks, hang on one second. I think do we have a slight signal drop off here? Hang on one second. Let me make sure we get back going here. Yeah. So the interesting thing here is the bill everybody thought was pretty much going to pass. Senator Jonathan Dismang went to the well of the Senate, and he decided to, run his bill. And Senator Will Bond had a few things to say. Let's just actually listen in. This was yesterday from the Senate chamber. The bill did fail, but a lot of people thought it was going to pass. Senator Jason Rapert had a pretty good zinger as well, talking about 138 years of Democrat rule. So let's listen in yesterday from the Senate chamber. Take a listen.
11 has an emergency clause. Senator, for what purpose does the gentleman rise? Senator Bond.
Motion.
Senator Bond wants to make a motion. What's your come to the well and make your motion.
Motion is to place the bill back, to suspend the rules and place the bill back on second reading for the purposes of amendment. Have an amendment that would cap the tax relief at $456,000, making it to where that top 1% does not get the reduction to 5.9. It would change the impact. It would lessen the impact by about $70 million. So I'm asking the body to debate that amendment to lessen the impact, not give the 5.9% to the top 1% today.
The motion is to put it on the second reading so he can amendment to cap it. Does anyone have a question for Senator Bond on the motion? Senator Garner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, when did you think up this motion? I mean, we were in committee yesterday. I don't remember being in particular discussion about that. Seems like there was no discussion, no thing until this last-minute effort to do a motion. When did you dream up this motion?
Well, thank you, Senator Gardner. I didn't dream it up. I have been asking our Bureau and others for the numbers on the impact of the cut at different levels, at 500, at $1 million. If you just said, a certain level would get the 5.9, but not a higher level. And then this morning they gave me the numbers that at $456,000, if you just say the folks under that get the 5.9%, but the folks over that stay at 6.9%, then it lessens the impact actually approximately $73.6 million. And so that's why, and I mentioned to Senator Dismang right before we came in and Senator Hendren that I was going to attempt this. I knew it would be tough sledding, but when I got the numbers and saw where the impact breaks and how significant portion of the tax cut goes to those over the $456,000 level, that's when I got the amendment started.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? No. Noes have it. The motion fails. Senator Dismang is recognized on this bill.
Thank you, Governor. Members, I think most of you all have had a pretty thorough and good chance to review the bill, and so specifically I just want to spend some time explaining what it is exactly the bill does. As most of you know, we had our tax task force that met, and one of the priorities there was competitiveness and also to drive down our income tax rates here in Arkansas. History, most of y'all were here. We passed a low income tax credit middle income tax credit or cut in 2015, a lower income tax cut in 2017, and then this session, through this bill, we're focused on the upper income tax table. So if you'll take a look at the bill, actually begins its impact in 2020, and specifically there is no impact to the lower income tax table. For the middle income tax table, it takes the top rate from 6% to 5.9%, and then the upper bracket, it lowers it from 6.9 to 6.6%. And then in tax year 2021, it lowers the top rate from 6.6 to 5.9%. And the overall revenue impact of this bill, once fully implemented, is $97 million. And the reason that we were able to reach that number is because that upper table is taxed at our higher marginal rate because there's some flattening inside that table. The rates are 2%, 4%, and then ultimately 5.9%, with the majority of the income being taxed at 5.9%. With that, I figured I'd leave plenty of time for questions.
Does anyone have any questions for the Honorable Senator Dismang? Senator Chesterfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Dismang, is this what came out of the tax reform? Is this the recommendation that came from the tax reform committee?
No, the recommendation that came out of the tax...
Or is this a hybrid?
This would be a hybrid, absolutely.
Any other questions for Senator Dismang? Anyone wish to speak against? Okay, well, I'm going to give...
Stop.
I'm going to give deference to the gentleman.
Covering the Nicking General Assembly, and we are going to listen to some Democrats now speak against this legislation that failed yesterday by 2 votes. That's because, according to Talk Business and Politics, Senator Bill Sample wants a highway bill before he will vote for the tax cut bill. That's interesting. And so here are the Democrats' objections, though, because this was a lot of fun to listen to. Listen.
General lady who went to Hendricks, Senator Chesterfield, and then Senator Bond. You've already had a lot of time at the mic today. We're going to let you come up after that. Senator Chesterfield's recognized.
Thank you, Hendricks Alam. I do appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, I know the train is rolling, and I'm about to get run over by the caboose. I expect that. But I wax concerned that we're cutting so much of the revenue of the state. And I wax concerned because I know at some point in time the economy is not going to be what it is today. And then we're going to have to try to make up that money. I wax concerned also because we have not found the money to rebuild the infrastructure of this state. And then we're going to have to go to the little guy and ask him or her to tax themselves in order to build the roads. So I would ask that you think about it. I know that, as I said, this is going to pass, but I would be remiss if I did not say it concerns me greatly every time we cut the income of the state of Arkansas. It worries me. You cannot continue to cut your income and maintain your standard of living. I would appreciate a no vote.
Anyone wish to speak in favor of the bill? Anyone wish to speak in favor of the bill?
Doesn't have the money to spend. So we were talking about that in the gallery yesterday.
Yeah, you know, a liberal Democrat made about the best analogy you could for what is necessary to shrink the size and scope of government. That's cutting taxes, sending less money to the government. You're going to have to cut your standard of living or the size and scope of government if you have less income tax revenue.
Excellent. All right, let's keep listening in here. Yesterday, the governor's discussion of the governor's tax cut plan.
Senator Bond wants to speak against the bill. Welcome, Senator Bond.
And I know everybody's ready to vote, but this is a significant issue for me personally in that I've served in the House many years ago, and many of y'all may not remember when we had to pass an income tax surcharge under Governor Huckabee to balance a budget around here. And we also had to pass a sales tax for adequacy. And those were tough votes. Back then, the sales tax for adequacy in education got 54 votes in the House of Representatives. And so let's think historically. In the last 10 years, we've cut over, which is a credit to this governor and the prior governor and members of this assembly, we've cut over $500 million in taxes in the last decade. And at some point, we have to stop and say, what do we want Arkansas to be? What are we going to lead the nation in? What are we going to improve in? There's a lot of categories where we're not doing that well. We all agree that we should do something on infrastructure. But as Senator Chesterfield noted, it seems as if we're saying we're going to lower taxes and then vote out to the people to raise taxes on themselves. And that just doesn't make any sense to me, personally. We lead the nation in teen pregnancy. We're at the bottom in the education level of our citizenry. We're usually in a battle with West Virginia for the least educated citizens in the United States of America. We have some in the surrounding state area. Senator Ingram raised, I think, in committee the other day that we're 47th or lowest in state police salaries. We are making progress on teacher salaries, but I think the goal should be that teachers get paid at least the same as legislators. How about that? They don't right now. So let's set some goals. Let's make some priorities. Yes, let's do sensible tax reform, but let's make sure we're striving for something. Let's no longer be number one in the nation in teen pregnancy. Let's be number one in the next 5 years in the percentage of our citizens that achieve a job training certificate, a vocational degree, a 2-year degree, or a 4-year degree. What we do in this chamber, nobody's going to remember us individually. No one. No one. It's what history will we write together. And I'll tell you, nobody's going to put on their tombstone that you lowered the top rate to 5.9. Now, they might say that we changed the future of Arkansas by increasing the number of people in our state that are educated, getting out of the bottom 5 and in at least to the middle. They might say that we lead our region in teacher salaries and that we made it a goal that teachers should be paid at least as much as legislators. They might say that we improved our roads and infrastructure better than anybody in the South. Let's do that together. Let's not do this. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone wish to speak for? Senator Rayford is recognized to speak for the bill.
Yes, members, I wasn't going to speak for it because I believe it's going to pass without a problem, but since we're in a position right now where what is said from this well is actually broadcast everywhere. I got here in 2011, and it wasn't until 2013 that Republicans actually had a majority in this legislature. I don't think it's appropriate to get up and quote a bunch of statistics that frankly are as a result of 138 years of Democrat leadership of our state. It takes a while to turn a ship this big. And we have voted for multiple tax cuts, and we have seen our state improve. We have the lowest unemployment rate we've ever had in the history of our state. We've created jobs, and we've been responsible in what we're doing. And as a member of the Tax and Revenue Committee that passed this out, I did not hear any audible no's in the Tax and Revenue Committee. I think that what has been done and what's been placed before you is the right thing. It's the right thing for the state of Arkansas. Thank you.
Anyone?
Stop.
Senator Elliott wishes to speak against the bill.
Josh, that was a lot of people in the gallery. I could hear when he talked about 138 years of Democrat rule, Senator Rapert there, you could hear people go, ooh, it was like a fight was being started.
Yeah, it was like a Burn moment. Burn, hey, you're citing all these stats. Oh, by the way, 138 years that led to those stats.
Yeah.
Well,
teacher pay, law enforcement pay, teen pregnancy. Oh, wait. Well, let's stop and think about this for a minute. Yeah. I thought it was now, of course, then Senator Elliott immediately took offense to it because apparently they said, if you make your points by pointing out that one's a Democrat, one's a Republican, that makes us not be able to work together.
But the Republican Party platform and the Democrat Party platform are very different.
Yes.
And the principles behind those are the ones that can, I believe, improve lives or make things harder on people, make things harder on starting a business.
Exactly.
And if you have 138 years of this, one set of principles and you have these results, and then you got, 3 or 4 years and you got some improving results, there's at least some data there to look at.
Yeah, I thought Senator Rapert was, I appreciated his comment.
Yeah.
I really did. Folks, we're going to take a break. This is Conduit News Radio. Don't go anywhere.
If it grows government, increases dependency on government, spends money we don't have, that's a bad thing. Well, in order to keep the government oftentimes from doing those things, from growing, you have to be able to know as an average citizen what it is they're doing, or it will tend to just spiral out of control. All right, Josh, let's get to the last bill on the scorecard for week number 3. It is SB 192 by Republican Senator Missy Irvin from Mountain View, and this is not a bill that we're supporting. This is a bill that we're opposed to. It would be a new health care council to lobby legislators, I read here over at conduitnews.com. What can you tell us about SB 192?
Yeah, Paul, you mentioned it last week on the show. Unfortunately, this bill is eerily similar to a parody you put out. And what it does, it sets up a new health care council to where there's...
Bob Maloney here with a developing story from ASA News, The Parrot. China is coming to Arkansas. We go live to the press conference where the Communist Chinese executive is addressing Arkansans for the first time. Let's listen into the translator.
On behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, we invite you to come and visit the newest named city in Arkansas, China, Delphia. We are very pleased to own an American city. Our communist government is proud to do business with the mediocre state of Arkansas. We are happy to take your money and your trees and send the profits back home. The Communist government of China was pleased to learn the taxpayers of Arkansas are excited to contribute their money with the hope, if you build it, one day jobs will come. We are excited to take your fields of capitalism and turn them into fields of communism, where every Arkansan has nightly dreams of Mao. China is looking forward to our investment of $1 billion in what is now called Arkansas. We see this as an investment in our future and that future will be called New Beijing. Chinese investment will make Arkansas a great place for jobs as the People's Republic of China will succeed where the Soviets failed. As we build our roots deep in Arkansas, we are thrilled with the potential new ideas and advancement we will share with our people back home. Soon we will have the world's largest runway in the South China Sea, and we thank Arkansas for contributing to our noble cause. In closing, once we make China great again, all of you will see the glory of the revolution of Mao. And Arkansas, whatever you do, please never call the FBI.
Paul Harrell, Karen. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Welcome back. We're doing our coverage for the 92nd General Assembly. If you're just joining us, number one, you need to know Donald Trump gave a fantastic State of the Union speech last night. But number two, you need to know that Governor Hutchinson's tax plan, a straightforward bill that would lower the income tax from 6.9 to 5.9%. Of the top bracket, failed yesterday by 2 votes. Senator Jim Hendren, the president pro tem, said the bill could come back before the Senate as early as today, or it could come back next week. There are holdouts. Senator Terry Rice, Senator Bill Sample. Bill Sample's quoted in Talk Business and Politics over at talkbusiness.net as saying he wants a highway plan first. Clearly, they want some sort of guarantee. I don't know what it is. It could literally be anything. It could be that they want a commitment from the governor to do a highway bill that doesn't refer out to the voters, meaning they want a high. And I just want to be clear here. This is blatant speculation on my part. It could be that they don't want to refer a tax increase to the voters, and they'd rather just man up and pass the tax increase themselves. Everybody vulnerable if that were the case. A lot more people will be vulnerable. Josh, what do you think is going on right now? I mean, it's really mostly speculation at this point. Who knows?
Yeah, looking at Senator Sample's quotes, it sounds like maybe, hey, let's get something on paper. Let's get something concrete that I can be assured if we pass this income tax out, there's going to be a highway bill. A highway plan that is kind of concrete.
Well, and it may be general revenue. It may be these guys, another speculation. Dan Douglas's bill, which is a tax increase, doesn't refer to the voters, and Dan Douglas wants to take money from general revenue. The governor doesn't want to do that. So these guys could be saying, look, we're not passing your income tax plan until you commit to using general revenue like other states do for the highways. That could also be what's going on here. Who knows? I mean, but there's just until some of these until we see what happens. I mean, or somebody else comes out and is more specific with the press, we're not going to know. So
yeah, I guess it took about 4 weeks for things to get kind of exciting and some
here we go,
some debates.
See what happens. Roads, not jobs. Roads. That seems to be the theme so far, folks. This is Conduit News Radio. We're going to be back in just a moment. We'll be talking school choice. Patrick Wolf will be with us in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
If it grows government, increases dependency on government, spends money we don't have, that's a bad thing. Well, in order to keep the government oftentimes from doing those things, from growing, you have to be able to know as an average citizen what it is they're doing, or it will tend to just spiral out of control. All right, Josh, let's get to the last bill on the scorecard for week number 3. It is SB 192 by Republican Senator Missy Irvin from Mountain View. And this is not a bill that we're supporting. This is a bill that we're opposed to. It would be a new health care council to lobby legislators. I read here over at conduitnews.com. What can you tell us about SB 192?
Yeah, Paul, you mentioned it last week on the show. Unfortunately, this bill is eerily similar to a parody you put out. And what it does, it sets up a new healthcare council to where they're going to be in a very organized position amongst all 23 members in the healthcare community, people on licensing boards, to basically say, hey, we think this should or should not be done when it comes to a license or scope of practice. And so at the end of the day, I think, unfortunately, what would happen with this type of council, it would be another way for any occupational licensing reform, expanding scope of practice, to be able to see the light of day. It's already so hard to get bills like that through. There's rules that limit when those bills have to be filed by. There's rules about whether an interim study proposal has to be submitted months in advance. And so this is just, reading through it another way that would potentially harm, just leave the system in place. There's plenty of opportunities for the healthcare industry to come to the table, get involved in the process to stop bills. And I'm just worried this would be a very unified and organized way with the stamp of approval from this fancy-sounding council to legislators on what they think would be best.
I mean, the healthcare industry in this state is already so powerful, and that goes with the licensing of healthcare professionals. And you're telling me, you mentioned, a parody that we've done here, and it was, several years old at this point, the Arkansas State Licensing Board governing state licensing boards, and it was meant as satire to say, and that, these licensing boards are really oftentimes not about public safety. It's about protecting your industry. It's about kind of a shakedown, if you will. And that seems to be what's kind of, maybe not necessarily shakedown, but certainly protecting the industry from reforms, because here's what they're noticing. These attempts.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Yesterday, we read for you a fantastic op-ed in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette about the importance of school choice, and now's the time to get it done, by Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin. And I wanted to bring in now, we have Dr. Patrick Wolf is on the line. You've heard from Patrick before. He is a distinguished professor of education policy and a 21st century endowed chair in school choice in the Department of Education Reform at the University of Arkansas College of Education and Health Profession. Dr. Patrick Wolf, it's good to have you on again, sir.
Thanks, Paul. Good to be here.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. Did you read and were you encouraged by Lieutenant Governor's Tim Griffin's op-ed in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette? I mean, I thought it was really straightforward and really a challenge with an opportunity of things that we can get done.
Yeah, I thought it was a very strong piece. It highlighted the fact that parents are first educators. They want and need to be in control of their child's education. And when they have more options, they have more of an ability to match their child to the school that's going to best meet their kids' needs.
So last night, the President of the United States, in his State of the Union address, he referenced school choice. This is something that when I first heard of it, it was a very bipartisan issue. Is it still a bipartisan issue, or is it less so at this point?
It's less so at the national level. There isn't much support from congressional Democrats for parental school choice, but at the state and local level, school choice always has been and continues to be generally a bipartisan issue with support from both sides of the aisle.
So, and that's fantastic. I think Arkansas has got a great chance. Right now we're in the middle of our coverage of the 92nd General Assembly. 2 years ago, we weren't as successful. There was a plan. State Representative Jim Dotson had a bill to allow some scholarships, some funds, allow for organizations to be charitable to fund these scholarships. But of course, we had some arguments from the status quo school district superintendents that they thought this was going to hurt them, and those are the arguments. Are those the arguments in other states? Because I know that you are you're a resource that people all across the country use for school choice.
Yeah, I mean, there are 54 programs in 30 states across the country. We have a small program here in Arkansas, the Succeed Scholarship Program, that's limited to students with moderate to severe disabilities. And so there's been a push. Jim Dotson and others have been pushing for expanding access to school choice for larger populations of families in Arkansas. Yeah, so I mean, everything is very predictable if you don't have school choice, right? I mean, every kid goes to their residentially zoned school. So that makes planning easy for people working in the public school system. But sometimes that creates a situation where a child just isn't getting what they need and parents aren't getting what they want from their schools because one size really doesn't fit all in a child's education. So, I mean, I think a lot of the pushback from the public school system is just, because it will disrupt their ability to predict, how many kids are coming and things like that.
Yeah, and that's going to make it hard to budget. Do you think any of it is taken personally sometimes?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I suppose, you want, but in choice environments I've studied, Paul, like Milwaukee. Milwaukee was where the original private school choice program was launched in 1990. When I went in there with my research team and evaluated that program and other school choice programs in Milwaukee, the superintendent came up to me and said, "We know school choice is here to stay. We want parents to choose our schools." So I thought that was a very healthy attitude by him, that everybody should go to the school they want, and I want them to want my schools.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great attitude. And I'm sure that there are some Arkansas superintendents, who believe the same way. I don't think anybody is willing to say that, our educational system, our public educational system is where it needs to be. We are getting, bad results in some cases. And then there, at the same time, there are really good schools out there as well. It just seems to me that anytime school choice is talked about, there seems to be like a resistance. We don't even have teachers unions, in Arkansas, but it seems to me that there is a resistance to it because they think it's somehow going to be a negative thing on the public schools. But in reality, I think competition eventually is going to help everybody out.
And there's lots of research to support that, Paul. There have been 29 studies of what happens to the kids who stay in traditional public schools when private school choice is launched or expanded. And 28 out of the 29 find that their test scores go up. And they find that the schools communicate more effectively with parents when they face competition, that they launch new programs to meet the needs of students, and test scores go up. So, the families who stay in public schools, because those are working for them, they don't have anything to fear from choice. And I think ultimately, the people working in the public school system don't really have anything to fear from choice. It's change, and change is always a little frightening. But if they have an effective school, they're delivering results for parents. Those parents aren't going to leave.
So again, we're talking with Dr. Patrick Wolf, professor in 21st century, chair in school choice, professor of education at the University of Arkansas. So in your experience, when a state begins to adopt school choice, does it most of the time happen in increments? Are there any examples of a massive reform all at once? What typically happens?
Sure, that's a great question, Paul. Typically, like 3 to 5% of the eligible students participate in the first few years of a private school choice program. And then it grows kind of, modestly from there. Basically parents have a certain wisdom. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So if everything's going fine for their child in their neighborhood public school, they'll stay. But if it's not working out, that's where private school choice gives them new options that can really help their kids.
So it's really just more, when we say it just kind of is going to depend on the parents. If you give them the option, then it's going to be up to, are there a lot of underperforming schools? So, if there were a lot, then maybe you would assume that there might be more parents that are going to start taking advantage of the freedom that they have. One of the points that Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin made in his articles, how right now the status quo is something that we really would reject in any other aspect of our life. So if you could only go to the grocery stores that were in these, kind of arbitrary geographical boundaries, and maybe they're not arbitrary because, there's city boundaries, but, if you could only go to Walmart because it's the only one in your locale and you couldn't go to Kroger, we would reject that outright, but we accept it when it comes to the public education system. I thought that was a good point.
Yes, choice is a big part of our economy, of our society. It's valued as an American principle. And what's interesting, Paul, is in education, from pre-K all the way through college, we have consumer choice at the bookends, but not in the middle. So pre-K, parents have tons of choices for pre-K, and government supports whichever provider they select, even if it's a private or religious provider. And similarly, at the college level, students have a lot of choice, and government grants and loans support whatever institution they choose to go to, even if it's private or religious. It's just in the K-12 window where it seems to be controversial to have choices for what education organization is going to deliver that vital service to your child.
I never thought about it. On the bookends, you have choice, but in the middle, you don't have a choice. That is pretty fascinating. So yeah, that's so. I think if a lot of people heard it phrased that way, maybe they would feel different. I definitely know with parents, more choice. Nobody's going to say no to more choice. Most of the time, I think those who are, the biggest problem that I had is I was covering this last year or 2 years ago when Arkansas was attempting to make some small reforms in this way. We did have a lot of people, teachers. My wife, is a teacher now. Well, now she's a stay-at-home mom, but they were hearing this stream of information that was starting at the top of their school district and going into the teachers' lounges. And they were coming out, and some of these people hadn't even actually read the bill, and some of the superintendents themselves hadn't read the bill, but they were just putting up this allergy, if you will, these defenses, saying we've got to stop this. And of course they were successful. And so I'm very optimistic this time. I hope that there are, Republicans and Democrats alike that are going to say, you know what, we need to do something. We need to give people an opportunity, if they want it, to go to school where they want to go to school, in spite of their zip code.
Yeah, Paul, the polling shows that more than 2/3 of Arkansans support the idea of providing tax-funded scholarships for parents to customize their child's education through private tuition, tutoring, special ed therapies, and such. And that's the proposal that the advocates are putting together for this session. It has, widespread popular support in the state by voters, by residents, and we'll see if they can get it through the legislature.
Are there other instances across the country? Are there any instances where someone's tax dollars actually follow their child to what school they want to go to?
Not explicitly, not in the way you might want. There's a certain logic to that, right? Because we fund education for the kids, not for the buildings. So why wouldn't the money be, directly associated with the child? Now it is kind of indirectly, because public schools are funded based on enrollment levels, previous year enrollment levels. But, there's a bit of a lag before that happens when a child switches schools. And also, nearly half of the funding for schools is outside of that foundational formula. So it's going to schools and school districts regardless of how many students they have. So you don't really quite have that idea of student-based funding where the money quickly and completely follows the child when they switch schools.
Well, the reason I wanted to ask that is because now, personally, I think that would be a great idea. I think that would really be, competition and competing for customers, and the customers are the students. But you're saying that that's not really the case. That's not what a lot of these school choice reforms are attempting to do. They're attempting to do different things that, don't hurt the funding source necessarily of the existing schools. Is that correct?
Yes, they're all funded with separate appropriations. So there's it's like launching a new program. Now, eventually, they save the state money because the scholarships tend to be about half the amount that the state spends on a child when they attend a traditional public school. So in a sense, with some startup money from the state, there's a little bit of a cost to launch these programs, but then eventually, it catches up and they save money because they've got slightly lower enrollments in the more expensive traditional public schools because kids are going to the less expensive private schools.
Well, let's hope that the state of Arkansas, listens to your great advice, Dr. Patrick Wolf, and listens to the advice in that op-ed of the Lieutenant Governor, Tim Griffin, and hopefully we can make strides to give parents more choice, and that will directly benefit the students, which is what education is supposed to all be about, sir.
Oh, yes.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. It's great to talk to you again, Dr. Patrick Wolf.
My pleasure, Paul.
All righty. Folks, this interview will be up at conduitnews.com, and you can share it with your friends if you want to know more about school choice. Again, Patrick Wolf, a distinguished professor of education policy and 21st Century Endowed Chair in School Choice in the Department of Education Reform at the University of Arkansas. We're going to take a break and be back in just a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. Are you a conservative-minded young person and want to let the world know about it? Are you tired of rolling your eyes as your professor regurgitates progressive, PC, neo-Marxist nonsense? Then you should interview on Conduit News Radio's Young Conservative segment and tell us about why you believe the way you do. Tell us how you came to be a conservative and what are your views on government. Now, if you're worried that your neo-Marxist professor may also be a right-wing talk radio listening masochist, then names can be changed to protect the innocent. It's the Conduit News Radio Conservative Future segment. To be interviewed, call 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Set reform are not going away because you do have a lot more Republicans down there who believe that licenses, the fact that we have more licensing boards in the state of New York, are barriers to starting a business, therefore barriers to economic growth. And that's really what we're talking about here. And when you have a healthcare community that has more stringent licensing requirements oftentimes than our surrounding states, it means that healthcare professionals aren't going to move here. And it also means higher prices for your consumer because, there's less competition. So, to me, this is a direct response at scope of practice bills and everything else continuing to be written and be debated. And I think they're wanting to really have one more firewall. They're creating a new firewall so that they can stop reforms in our health care.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Now, Republicans and Democrats must join forces again to confront an urgent national crisis. Congress has 10 days left to pass a bill that will fund our government, protect our homeland, and secure our very dangerous southern border. Now is the time for Congress to show the world that America is committed to ending illegal immigration and putting the ruthless coyotes, cartels, drug dealers, and human traffickers out of business. As we speak, large organized caravans are on the march to the United States. We have just heard that Mexican cities, in order to remove the illegal immigrants from their communities, are getting trucks and buses to bring them up to our country in areas where there is little border protection. I have ordered another 3,750 troops to our southern border to prepare for this tremendous onslaught. This is a moral issue. The lawless state of our southern border is a threat to the safety, security, and financial well-being of all America. We have a moral duty to create an immigration system that protects the lives and jobs of our citizens. This includes our obligation to the millions of immigrants living here today who followed the rules and respected our laws. Legal immigrants enrich our nation and strengthen our society in countless ways. I want people to come into our country in the largest numbers ever, but they have to come in legally. Tonight I am asking you to defend our very dangerous southern border out of love and devotion to our fellow citizens and to our country. No issue better illustrates the divide between America's working class and America's political class than illegal immigration. Wealthy politicians and donors push for open borders while living their lives behind walls and gates and guards. Meanwhile, working-class Americans are left to pay the price for mass illegal immigration. Reduced jobs, lower wages, overburdened schools, hospitals that are so crowded you can't get in, increased crime, and a depleted social safety net. Tolerance for illegal immigration is not compassionate. It is actually very cruel. One in 3 women is sexually assaulted on the long journey north. Smugglers use migrant children as human pawns to exploit our laws and gain access to our country. Human traffickers and sex traffickers take advantage of the wide open areas between our ports of entry to smuggle thousands of young girls and women into the United States and to sell them into prostitution and modern-day slavery. Tens of thousands of innocent Americans are killed by lethal drugs that cross our border and flood into our cities, including meth, heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl. The savage gang, MS-13, now operates in at least 20 different American states, and they almost all come through our southern border. Just yesterday, an MS-13 gang member was taken into custody for a fatal shooting on a subway platform in New York City. We are removing these gang members by the thousands, but until we secure our border, they're going to keep streaming right back in. Year after year, countless Americans are murdered by criminal, illegal aliens. I've gotten to know many wonderful angel moms and dads and families. No one should ever have to suffer the horrible heartache that they have had to endure. Here tonight,
that's
Deborah
all the time we have today, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you this much. He did say, Donald Trump said Josh was going to build the wall. It was really powerful. And then he also said, El Paso used to be the wall up in El Paso. It's now one of the safest cities in the country. He said that he would get it done. Really powerful night in a lot of ways. Hit on all the issues and also had a lot of bipartisan stuff that, it's like he made the Democrats stand and approve of Trump, 69% approval, according to a CBS News poll. We'll continue with our coverage today at the Marble Palace of the 92nd General Assembly in Little Rock. And everything else, folks, check out conduitnews.com. Josh, thanks for being with us today. Be safe, Arkansas.